Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Green Zone podcast, episode 5 of our second season here on the College of St. Scholastica on the media studio that we have here on hand. I'm Cameron Green. I'm the host of the Green Zone podcast. I'm happy to be with you now for a full month. We've been here now for a full month, doing these at a full week process. I really love coming in here every Thursday, getting to do stuff with you guys. For those of you who watch, I really appreciate all of you guys. Feel free to like and subscribe to share more people. We'd like to get more people on the Green Zone pod, get Green Zoners. I don't know what that term means, but Green Zoners, maybe that's what we'll roll with here. Today it's October 3rd here. I want to roll through some things. I want to talk about the MLB playoff predictions and the outlook. I know some games have already started, but my bracket has been submitted. My picks have been, we're underway here in MLB baseball. I want to get those predictions I have, lock them in, and also my outlook this year for the MLB postseason. We're gonna look at some of the craziest weeks from NFL last week as well. We'll do our weekly picks here on the Green Zone Pod. So let's jump right in to where we want to start off here. I'm gonna start off with postseason baseball. We are officially into October. October is in the air. I remember a couple weeks ago I had a thing talking about if the Twins were gonna hang on. I'm repping my Twins hat today. Does not happen. Of the final four teams left in the American League, three are from the American League Central. I think Kansas City, Detroit, and Cleveland are all very viable teams to be there. I think if I am not wrong, I did pick the Tigers to make the wild card in my earlier bracket. Like I made back here way back in March near opening day. So I give myself a little credit there, but I also had Cleveland finishing third, and Kansas City finishing no more than fourth. So I mean, you know, take it as you want right now. The other side of the brackets right now, the Mets and Brewers dealing off, Padres advancing over the Braves, the Dodgers getting the 1 seed, Phillies 2 seed, Yankees 1, Guardians 2. I want to go over how my bracket looks before we jump into this because before I analyze anything, I want to fully lock in how I feel, how I was predicting, and how I was kind of moving in a sense too of where my head was at come playoff season. So the Tigers Astros series will start off there. I actually did pick Detroit to win this series. Didn't think it was going to be a 2-0 sweep, but if you look at this Tigers squad, I mean, you got Tarek Skubal. You got the best pitcher in the American League, arguably in baseball, you could say, of this season. Tarek Skubal was kind of the man from essentially the word go. Um, Houston ends its streak of 7 straight ALCSs. Which, you can sit there and say rejoice, rejoice, but that is one hell of an accomplishment if you think about it. 7 straight years. That fan base has a chance to play for the World Series, in the World Series trophy. Like that's incredible. Um, and then where it all began with guys like Springer and Altuve and Carlos Correa and Alex Bregman. And, I don't think Alex Bregman's gonna be back in an Astro uniform. I really don't think that's gonna happen. I think some team will probably give him a good number to play elsewhere. Some team might be very dire need of a third baseman. They feel like they're a third baseman away from being a World Series caliber team. And it reminds me a lot of like when Chris Bryant left, not just only the Cubs, excuse me, but the Giants. I mean, I didn't think he was going to land in Colorado. So I think if the team finds the right number for Alex Bregman, he'll end up being in that squad. I don't think that it's time. If he wants to sign another contract in Houston, that is totally fine, I think, by me. But um, if I'm Alex Bregman too, I would like to have a little bit more of my own squad uh, as I look into what's going to be coming up next here for you, payday wise. I mean, I would want to be the leader of my own squad, at least a valid number two. And I don't think it mattered if it was going to be George Springer, if it was going to be Carlos Correa. No one, I don't think, was really going to touch Jose Altuve's accomplishments there in Houston as long as he plays, which could be another 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, who really knows? But that's Altuve's team. We're going to shift to the Royals Orioles series. Now, I did have Baltimore winning this series, and I had Baltimore going to my ALCS, so I'm not the most happy camper about this one. Um, and I guess in a sense too, like this is where I always thought Baltimore would find a way to not move on. The lack of depth they have at some of their positions. I mean, Adley Rutschman's a great player. Uh, Anthony Santander's a great player. Mountcastle's a great player. You got Jackson Holiday in that group. There's so many young dudes in this squad that it's going to take more than a year or two to break through and actually make a deep run to the playoffs, which they haven't really done over the past couple of years. And it's shown. I think that they are really maybe another solid starting pitcher away from being a high quality team. Grayson Rodriguez was solid this year. Corbin Burns had another great season. And if they would have had Kyle Bradish for the whole year, I think this squad would be in such a different place to where they actually are now. Kind of disappointing, I think, for them. You do not expect to go down 2-0 to a team that last year lost over 100 games. But I think Cleveland, or excuse me, Kansas City shows what a team doesn't have to be what they were the previous year. I mean, in baseball, it can go either way. But Cole Ragans showed how he's a dominant pitcher. Seth Lugo is going to be a great pitcher in this next series against the Yankees. Michael Wacha's a good starter. Brady Singer's a good starter. Um, Kansas City is quietly building something here that they could continue for years to come. And the offense will come together if Pasquantino, had a really good, solid regular season. Bobby Witt Jr., probably a top five player in the game. I mean, there's guys in there in that lineup that you could sit there and say, if healthy, they'll be back here again next year. And that's the part of the AL Central now is really scary because you have three of the final four teams in the American League from the AL Central that less than a handful of years ago, the Central was known to be one of the weakest divisions in not just the American League, but in all of baseball. Um, because I mean, look at last year. When you look at last year, I'll pull this up right here. Um, it's really incredible to see that last year that the Twins were able to win the AL Central by just winning about 88 games. 87 and 75 were the Twins. Um, and those four teams that we talk about here that are in the playoffs now, or the three others, Detroit was 6 games under 500. Cleveland was 10 games under 500. And Kansas City, of course, was 50 games under 500. Um, it's a world of difference when you look at how this year was compared to last year. I love this Tigers team. I love the Guardians. The Royals to me are a little shaky, but the Tigers and the Guardians are teams I could fully get behind. I think one of the winners of that series might go on to be playing in the World Series. I really am firmly believing in that because I think when it comes down to it, Baltimore had the last wild card spot locked up for a long time. And Houston had the AL West locked down for a long time. Once you knew Texas wasn't for real and Seattle was kind of losing its steam, you knew this was going to be Houston division probably for the last month of baseball. Both Detroit and Kansas City had to play urgent baseball down the stretch, and that's huge. I think when you look at how that worked out for both those squads, Detroit is probably playing the best 6 week stretch of baseball, of the last 10 years. You can see a team. I've not seen a team that had less than 3% chance of making the playoffs come the beginning of September be in the American League Division Series. I mean, I think this squad is going to be one of those ones, could be a team of destiny. And they're going to fit head to head against Cleveland, but Cleveland again has once also had the AL Central locked up for a long time. But they're familiar with each other. Detroit and Cleveland are very familiar with each other. They know exactly who does what. Nothing's going to fool them. I'm excited to see that series there. I'm going to go over to the National League side here. I know this one is still going on, but the Mets and Brewers, this is one I can actually put my input on. I did have the Mets moving on this series, and if you look at last night's game, if that eighth inning would have happened, or whatever it was, seventh or eighth inning, I mean, the Brewers are probably going home. Sean Manaea pitched a pretty solid game, I'd like to say. I wish this Mets team had Kodai Senga and a healthy squad. If they were healthy fully to what they could be, I think this squad would be an incredible wild card team. We'll see who's going to get the bump here for game three with the Mets and Brewers, but it's so different when you manage a game that's really is, go home, win or go home because it's such a different game. Jose Quintana's on the mound for the Mets, but you really wonder how long he'll last in there. This Brewers lineup is not particularly awesome against lefties, but you look at some of those guys, it's October baseball. Guys rise to the occasion. Just like Jackson Churio. He's younger than I am, folks. I'm 21 years old. I feel like that's pretty young in the world of life. And he's 20 years old and hit 2 home runs last night. And I just, there's something about when an athlete younger than you, not too much younger than you, but younger than you, does something that makes you just go like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm hosting the GreenZone podcast. So there we go. We got people laughing here. But the Mets and Brewers there. I have the Mets moving on. I think they're going to win game three tonight. And between the Braves and the Padres, I did have the Padres winning this game, or this series, I should say. I mean, for Atlanta, I know I picked them to be my World Series champion back in March. I want to credit them to being a squad that's just not healthy. You didn't have Spencer Strider. You didn't have Ronald Acuna Jr. for most of the year. Don't have Austin Riley. You didn't have Ozzie Albies for a long part of the season. This team is not what they were coming in March, and that's the unfortunate part. Unlike the Orioles, who I also had in my World Series prediction in March, that squad is pretty much the same. Again, you don't have Kyle Bradish for most of the year, but most of that core is still there. The Braves core is a mess this year, and I'm not going to jot that up to them being a bad team. San Diego right now is just in a better spot to win as of October 3rd, 2024. They're just in a better spot to win. The lineup's better. The pitching staff is more healthy. They have better consistency out of their bullpen. Um, San Diego was meant to win this game in this series in 2 games. I want to get now into our Division Series games. Tigers and Guardians. This one's a close one. I think the Guardians are going to win in 5. They're going to push it to the brink. I think both teams are going to have their solid success stories. Scuba, we'll see if he'll get back on the mound, but I mean, Cleveland has always been one of those tough teams. They are a better team than Detroit and have been that way for a long time, at least over the summer of baseball. Like the big picture, you know, they're better than Detroit, big picture wise, but Detroit has been playing better for the last month. I want to take the hot hand, but I think Cleveland's a better squad than Detroit. So I have them winning in 5 games. And with the Royals and the Yankees, well, I initially had Baltimore winning this series. So that's kind of awkward, but we'll take myself away from that. If I'm going to shift here, I think the Yankees will beat this Royals squad probably in 4 games. I mean, listen, you're going to have Garrett Cole throw game one. You're going to have Nestor Cortez throw game two, or you have a number of guys you could throw. Um, the Yankees are built for it. The lineup is insane. If you have anytime you're leading off an inning, possibly be, Judge, Soto, Stanton. I mean, it's hard to look at that scheme and not think that there's someone better than them out there. You could have LeMahieu, David Torres, um, Anthony Volpe. Like, there's just 1 through 9 a better squad than Kansas City. So I'm gonna think it is gonna be a 1-2 matchup here in the ALCS. Guardians will be taking on the Yankees. Now, in the National League side, I said I did have the Mets taking on the Phillies in the next round. I think the Phillies will win that game probably in 3. It would not surprise me if they swept the Mets. Um, Much like how I think for the Yankees, the Phillies are the best team built for the World Series here. I think they're a World Series caliber team. If you're going to come on a rotation, you're going to throw Zach Wheeler, you're going to throw Aaron Nola, you're going to throw a combination of Ranger Suarez, Christopher Sanchez, Tawan Walker. That 1 through 5 rotation is better than a lot of teams. Probably the best right now, most consistent in baseball. The Phillies, to me, scream World Series champion all over them. I think they'll win this game over the Mets in 3. And then we look to the bottom side, Padres and Dodgers. This is going to be a shocker. San Diego is going to ride this hot wave in the battle of the California squads. San Diego is going to beat the Dodgers, and it's going to be in 5-game series. It's going to be in 4 or 5. I think it's going to be more like 4. I think San Diego is a better offensive team. They're a better pitching team right now. Their pitching staff is better. Not when healthy, because if you have Tyler Glasnow out there and you have a healthy Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Clayton Kershaw's at full strength, and Walker Buehler's pitching the way he wants to. Bobby Miller took steps back this year. It's whatever, but Jack Flaherty will be out there. Um, they're just better than them right now, I think. Dodgers too. I mean, excuse me. Dodgers, when you look at that right now, Mookie Betts and Shohei are a dynamic duo. Shohei is carrying the whole baseball world on his shoulders right now. And I think he's going to get his first taste of falling short as a Dodger. And that's where I think it comes into play. It's going to be a Padres, Phillies, ALCS. Initially, I had the Orioles in there, but Cleveland and the Yankees. I don't think Cleveland's going to go to the World Series. I think Cleveland's going to sneak past New York. They're going to find a way to get in there. New York's going to find a way to choke at home, probably lose like game 4 or 5 at home, or game say not 4 or 5. 6 or 7 at home in an ALCS. Cleveland, I think, is going to go to the World Series. On the other side, if I have a Padres and Phillies World Series, the Philadelphia Phillies are going to move on to the World Series. I think they'll take this game in about 5 games. I'm so high in the Phillies right now. I think they're the best team in this postseason ballot, which is why I'm making my prediction here. Lock it in. The Philadelphia Phillies are going to be the World Series champion in the year 2024. Look, their lineup 1 through 9 is just better than everyone else in baseball right now. Their pitching staff 1 through 5 is better than everyone else in baseball. Their bullpen's solid. You got Matt Strom, Jose Alvarado, Jeff Hoffman. They have options at everywhere they want to be. Any situation they throw at them, they'll be able to answer that call. Phillies are going to be the World Series champions in the year 2024. I will do a year in review when it comes to my video in March about how I thought this season was going to go, how it ended up going. I know my award picks are so bad. They're so bad. Um, we like to throw around the term ages like milk around here on this show. That prediction ages like milk. But I think the Phillies winning the World Series this postseason will not age like milk. It's going to age like fine wine. Phillies will be World Series champions for the year 2024. We're going to shift now a little bit back towards the NFL. For our weekly picks segment we have here going on, I'll look at last week's games. I think we did okay on the picks. There were some games I thought pretty highly of, and some games that were just absolutely no, 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 no. What were you doing? For instance, the Saints falling short against the Falcons got that one incorrect. Steelers did not cover their 1.5 point spread against the Colts. However, the Bears and Vikings picked their ones that I had last week. The Jets were an absolute disaster against the Broncos. The Eagles did not play well at all against Tampa Bay. I thought a little too highly of Carolina. Like I said, I did pick Cincinnati in that straight up game last week, but Carolina did not cover the spread. Houston didn't look like quite like themselves last week. Again, split there against the spread and the straight up. Washington Commanders, though, folks. That one we were right about. We were on point with that one. That was a great game. And Buffalo Bills falling back to earth a little bit. Not quite what we had in mind um, as the picks last week. Tennessee Titans did pick that one right last week, so we're happy to see that. But we'll jump down to week 5 in our picks. We're starting off with Thursday Night Football, which is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. I'm torn about both of these squads. Now, the Falcons have a 1.5 point spread as favorites in this one. I think I'm going to take Tampa Bay in the spread and the straight up. Confused is the one word I think when I talk about playing this game. Because I don't think that there's a squad on this thing that I'm super confident in week in and week out. And Tampa Bay is one of those ones that go back and forth on all the time. If Baker plays well, they win. He doesn't play well, they don't win. And I know that's so cliche to say about every quarterback in pro football, but Baker is a prime example that they don't win if he doesn't play well. He just doesn't. Um, Tonight, I think he's going to play well. Therefore, I'm saying Tampa Bay is going to win this one. They're going to cover a 1.5 point spread as underdogs. Take them in this straight up and in the overall pick. Now we got our first London game of the season, taking on the New York Jets, taking on my Minnesota Vikings. I was a hater on the Vikings coming into the year, and it took me until last week, I think, to be fully engulfed in what's happening with Sam Darnold, what's happening with the Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are going to win this one and be 5-0. And I said they were going to be a 7-win team. Eat my crow. Eat my shorts. I will take that any day of the week. I swear to God, every time I think it's going to be a good season for a Minnesota sports team, it's the exact opposite. I think it's going to be a bad one. Something like this happens. Usually it ends up actually being a bad one, so I'm not really wrong about that one. But whatever happens, whenever I think of the optimistic side, it goes terribly wrong. When I think pessimistically, it goes terribly wrong. Therefore, the Jets have not played good enough football to compete with the Vikings right now. Aaron Rodgers is questionable. He's got a banged up knee. Darnold, the Vikings are healthy. The defense is solid once again. Vikings are going to cover the 2.5 point spread. They are favorites in London, taking Vikings in the straight up and the spread. Now back to our noon games on Sunday between the Panthers and the Bears. The Bears are 3.5 point favorites against Andy Dalton, taking on his second former team in this one. I think the Bears are going to cover the 3.5 point spread in this one. Mostly because I think that Caleb Williams has performed well at home. He can have some games here and there that are swing and misses. Not at home. You're not allowed to play bad at home against a Carolina squad that essentially gave you this whole, the way the Bears franchise has changed in the last couple of years. It's courtesy of the Carolina Panthers. Caleb needs to show them, what Carolina could have had they not lost their minds. Carolina, I think, is a 3.5 point underdog. They're gonna play a good game, but Chicago will cover the 3.5 point spread at home. Bears in the straight up, Bears in the spread. Moving on to the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are just simply lost right now. Picked up a win last week against Carolina, got them on the board, picked that game right last week. But Baltimore, their offensive scheme is crazy right now. I think they're going to win this game. Easily cover the 2.5 point spread over the Bengals. So Ravens in the straight up and Ravens in the spread. Another noon game we have here in Foxborough as the Miami Dolphins are taking on the New England Patriots. Um, I mentioned last week that Miami would look at getting Russell Wilson by the trade deadline. I'm still going to ride with this. This is the second week in a row that I think Russell Wilson will one day be a Miami Dolphin because Pittsburgh is going to move on from him once they decide Justin Fields is the guy. And if you ask me, Miami's a good spot for him. Miami's not ready to roll this season down the toilet, flush it away. But you got to be able to have certain dudes that are built to win this game that Miami just doesn't have right now. Stoop Huntley is not built to win this game in Foxborough. In a 1.5 point spread, both teams are 1-3. I'm taking the Patriots because they're at home. I'm taking them because they have their same guys that have been week in and week out. Jacoby Brissett's playing there week in and week out, like I say, but he's going to be there. Snoop Huntley goes down. Then what do we at again? Another Skylar Thompson, Tim Boyle. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Patriots are going to cover this 1.5 point spread. They'll move to 2-3. Patriots in the spread. Patriots in the straight up. Next noon game we have here is the Cleveland Browns taking on the Washington Commanders. Commanders right now are 3.5 point favorites. They're 3-1, folks. A Washington football team is 3-1. Enjoy it while it lasts, and I think it will actually extend here. Jaden Daniels looks calm, composed as ever. I think he's going to continue this great week, even against a Brown squad that I think has a pretty decent defense. Commanders will move on and take this one. They're going to be 4-1. Jaden Daniels going to have another solid game. They will cover the 3.5 point spread. We'll do Reds, or it's not Redskins, sorry. Commanders in the spread, Commanders in the straight up. Next game we have here on the noon's clock is the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. I believe the Colts need to get this game. I want to save on the record. Let me have my rant moment. I said last week Joe Flacco was going to play in the game one way or the other. Go back, clip it, put me on somewhere. Give me my roses. Flacco played, Flacco delivered. I don't think that Indy would be the dumbest squad in the world to not play Anthony Richardson this week. He's not healthy. Give Joe a game, another game. Let's do this. He won the game last week because Pittsburgh just could not stop Joe Flacco. The more things change, the more things stay the same for Pittsburgh. And Jacksonville, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is the final game of Doug Peterson's Jaguar head coaching career. This is it. I think this is what it gets to the end. Jacksonville is going to fall to 0-5, and they're going to have to do something about that. Indy will cover the 2.5 point spread as underdogs. They'll move on to 3-2. Jacksonville to 0-5. Indy, let Flacco play. It's not going to kill you. What is probably the game of the week, honestly, coming up next year, the Bills and the Texans. Bills are 1.5 point underdogs. And I don't think they're going to fall back to earth quite like they did last week. But I think Houston at home is an intriguing team. Stephon Diggs is going to look to have a great game against Buffalo. I think Texans are going to cover this 1.5 point spread. I have a feeling Stroud's going to play a fantastic game in front of his home crowd. Diggs is going to have a great game. So will Nico Collins. Whoever's there at running back will have a decent, summer night. Probably Mixon if he's in there. Josh Allen, I think he's going to try and force things a little too much. Going to maybe be a turnover machine this weekend. Houston, Cover the 1.5 point spread. I'll take them in the straight up and I'll take them in the spread. As we get to our afternoon schedule here now at 3:05 games, the Vegas Raiders are taking on the Denver Broncos. I'm not a big fan of the Denver Broncos this year. Having Bo Nix back there, it's not, particularly my cup of tea. But I think what's going on right now with Devontae Adams wanting to get out of Oakland, Las Vegas, is going to lead me to think that Denver is going to take advantage of the, um, I say miscommunication, dysfunctions, maybe the word I'm looking for. Denver's going to pounce on the dysfunction that's going on between the Raiders organization right now. Bo Nix will have a solid game at home. I think he'll have a good coming out party for him. Denver's going to be over 500. Vegas going to fall to 2-3 as they look to closely make that Devontae Adams trade. I think Devontae Adams to the Jets makes sense. Devontae Adams to the Chiefs makes sense. There's a lot of teams that make sense for this trade to happen, but Devontae Adams will not play this weekend, I don't think. Slowly going to probably play his last game as a Raider. Next game we have in our hands is the Arizona Cardinals coming in as 7.5 point underdogs against the San Francisco 49ers. This one's tough to me. The Niners have not played all that well. I thought Purdy was going to be the MVP of the league this year. Through 4 games, that's not it. We don't know how long Christian McCaffrey will be out. Jordan Mason's played tremendous to fill in for him. Deebo Samuel's been solid when he's healthy. George Kittle's been solid when he's healthy at full strength. Brandon Ayuk's been missing in action. He has not had a good game since. I think this is a game that he will have a bounce back game, get people to say, remember me, I'm Brandon Ayuk, whatever like that. So the Niners are going to win the game straight up. I do think the Cardinals are going to cover the 7.5 point spread. The Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr. connection looks solid to start the career for Marvin Harrison Jr. Cardinals are going to cover the 7.5 point spread, but the Niners I'll take in this straight up. Couple of 3:25 games. We got the Green Bay Packers traveling to take on the LA Rams. The Rams, I just think, are looking at that season not having Puka Nacua, not having Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams. I think we'll have a bounce back game. Or I say a back to earth game. Green Bay, if Jordan Love plays, are a solid squad. They showed last week they have a lot of fight in them. Doesn't matter how much they're down, they're always going to be in that game. And this game, I think they're going to not have to come back from this one. They'll take an early lead and hold on to that. They're going to cover the 3.5 point spread. I'll take Green Bay in the spread, and I'll take Green Bay in the straight up. Sunday at 3:25, once again, the New York Giants taking on the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle is quietly a team that is really solid this year. Geno Smith is playing out of his mind. A really solid player right now for them. I think Seattle is going to cover this 6.5 point spread against the Giants. They're going to move to 4-1. Giants are going to fall to 1-4 in this one. So Seahawks in the spread, Seahawks in the straight up. Sunday Night Football is the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers are 3-1. Justin Fields played a great game last week, but fell short against the Colts. Kind of a classic game if you want to think about it. Two teams that have had success the last 40 years. I think the Cowboys are going to win this one. They're 2.5 point underdogs. Steelers are 2.5 point favorites at home. And I think Dallas is going to win this one. Dak Prescott's going to have a good game. CeeDee Lamb will have a good game. The running game might revitalize itself in this one. I think Dallas is going to cover the spread at 2.5 point underdogs, and I will take the Cowboys in the straight up in this one. Now we move to our Monday night game of the week is the Saints and the Chiefs. It's an intriguing game. Usually Monday Night Football doesn't do much for me. This one kind of does. The Saints have looked like a roller coaster that goes all the way up and it goes all the way down. Like they really don't have a constant normal pace of play. Whereas the Chiefs are still up top. Listen, I cannot go against Kansas City until someone beats them. New Orleans, I don't think it's going to be that team that does that this week. Kansas City is going to take this one in the spread. They're 5.5 point favorites at Arrowhead Stadium. I'll take them in the straight up, and I will take them also in the spread. So that's it for the Green Zone podcast here of episode 5. We're fully now into a full month of Green Zone pods. We'll still come at you here every week on Thursdays here on our YouTube channel. I love being with you guys, doing stuff for you guys for content creation. Love every single piece of it. So from Cameron Green, the Green Zone podcast, peace out, guys. We'll see this one live on the YouTube. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Twitter page at the Green Zone Pod. Thanks, guys.